Hello, I am The Mecha is Melting, and you may be wondering where I've been, as I have uploaded exactly one video since March 10th, 2024. Well, I was in the process of becoming a dictator of a Walmart bathroom. And essentially what this video is me doing a kind of update of a thing, kind of not, you know. I have a lot to say about other stuff, in regards to future games and whatnot, but as of now, I'm just going to be talking about the Villains Update video that I did for Blackmoor 2 sometime last year. As my opinions have kind of changed very slightly, but more so, I just want to talk about how that video has been misinterpreted, or at least my points in the video have been misinterpreted. Real quick before we get into this, I want to talk about this, I guess. If you immediately discredit and ignored everything I said in the previous video because you think the playable villains are good, you kind of need to reevaluate everything and the way you consume media as a whole, because it's completely fine to think that the villain update is good, but to just completely ignore everything I said because it's an opinion that's different than yours is dumb. There are probably dozens, if not hundreds, of things I said in that video that you can poke holes in. There are probably several arguments you can make that completely devalue everything I said, but to completely ignore what I said just because it's an opinion different than yours, just because I don't like a thing that you like. You kind of need to reevaluate the way you consume commentary videos, because that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. If you have a problem with what I said in that video, you can poke holes in it. That's possible. But don't just completely ignore all of it because Mecha's a pessimist. Mecha is just a hater or whatever. Actually have things and arguments and stuff. Pretty simple. Also, do not use my video as an echo chamber to say Blackmoor 2 was bad. Don't watch that video and say, oh, he validated my opinion. Blackmoor 2 is the worst thing ever. I am now going to leave 17 one-star reviews. Yeah, don't do that. Don't be a little piss baby like that. I don't hate Blackmoor 2. I think it is a pretty good game at the end of the day. There are just things about it that I think should have been better. The first way the video was misinterpreted is I want to talk about the use of the word lazy. Now, I said the word lazy one time in the video to refer to Rusty and A6. Directly after I got done talking about them in the Boss Rush update, I said the word lazy. Now, regardless if you think Rusty and A6 were lazy inclusions, that has nothing to do with the thing I'm about to say. That point, that inclusion was lazy, has been strawmanned to think that I am talking about the developers being lazy the whole video when I said the word one time in reference to one thing. And yeah, no, I used the word rushed throughout the entire rest of the video. The villains updates were, in my opinion, rushed. I used the word lazy one time to describe one thing, and people have misinterpreted that to mean I think the developers are lazy in regards to literally every single thing I talk about in the video. No. I'm just going to say this real quick. If there is anything I do regret in that previous video, it was saying the word lazy there. I don't think Rusty and A6's inclusion in the villains update was lazy. Rusty was a thing, at least compared to other characters. Rusty was included in the update at first, and then they swapped to making A6, and then decided to not scrap Rusty and include her as an extra character beyond the initial amount. I still think Rusty is kind of a worthless inclusion, and I don't think she should cost more coins than A6, but using the word lazy to describe her is a bit questionable. And I do regret saying it. So let's go ahead and talk about the next thing that was misinterpreted, and that's the fact that I think every single villain in the villains updates were terrible. That's not true. I at one point in the original video said that villains were not an inherently bad concept, number one, and number two, I even listed a few that I liked, like Bufflecrux, right? I think that some villains are good. It does not change the fact that the vast majority of the villains roster is mediocre, lackluster, any other word you want to use to describe them being, you know, poor inclusions. None of them are, most of them are not terrible or anything. They're just below average quality-wise. They're kind of nothing inclusions to increase the character count, you know, of each individual villains update. They don't really feel like purposeful inclusions because they wanted a new diverse character, and this is the moveset they came up with. It feels like they wanted another character. They picked Gilius to be playable, and then they made that moveset for him. That's what it feels like. Another thing, I've seen the point made that if you think the villains are bad, then try not playing as villains, and I think that's also a dumb point. Because even if one villain is good, more than one villain is good, but even if one villain is good and the rest suck, which the rest don't suck, more than one villain is good, this is just to make the point. If one villain was good, there would still be a reason to click that button, even if the rest sucked. And if one villain... that's a dumb point. It's just a really, really dumb point to make. There are good villains in the villains updates. I listed them in the previous video, and there are bad villains in the villains update. Pretty simple. Most of them are pretty lackluster overall and aren't terrible or anything. They're just nothing inclusions. Now, you may be wondering, well, what point were you trying to make in the previous video? If the point you were trying to make wasn't that all villains are terrible, or even most of them aren't terrible, they're just, you know, kind of a character slot for the sake of a character slot, what was the point of the video then? And it's quite simple. The villains updates are poison for the community's expectations. Now, if you've been around the block in the community for a bit, you'd know that every single video the 4Fats released gets multiple comments on it, asking for new villains to be added to Blackmoor 2. Here are some. Some of those comments aren't asking for villains specifically, but come on, we know that's what they're referring to. And because of this concept, you know, adding a bunch of characters in one update that are all cool, well-liked characters in the community, but they don't have, you know, interesting movesets or anything, you're creating a negative feedback loop where people want more of these relatively uninteresting characters, and whenever you do introduce villains that are in solo updates by themselves that have interesting and unique movesets relative to that game, like Lord of the Owls, people are far less interested because they have quantitative expectations, not qualitative expectations. That's not a good thing. And I completely understand why this is. It is addictive to think about which characters you want added. It is addictive to make it. It is an addiction to make a list of characters that you want added, like Rat King, Don Portobello, Willie No Mates, Guardian, the demonic rat Yig from the hit game Rise of the Grunts 2, the shit weasel from Food Fight, Adam Sandler. It is addictive to come up with a list of characters you want added to the game. But it is not a good thing to add 7 or 8 characters per update that are, at the end of the day, below average for the game's character roster, that are less interesting than the average character by a wide margin. It's not a good thing. We should taper our expectations as a community to expect less villains, or less everything per update, but better content. Like getting, 12, 13 villains in that first villains update, and most of them just being uninteresting and just worse than the average character in terms of, versatility, that's not a good thing. That is not what we as a community should expect. That is a bad thing. Now, real quick, I just want to bring up why I was so harsh in that first video. You may be surprised to hear that I think the villains, on average, are just mediocre. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're terrible. I think they're just on average. There are some great villains that are high-quality playable characters that have versatile movesets and are unique and stand out compared to the heroes. But the vast majority of villains, I just think are okay. So why would I make this overwhelmingly negative video? It comes down to disillusionment. So prior to me releasing that video, and prior to slightly before that video's events and leading up to it existing, I, like many other people in the community, was addicted to the concept of, I want them to add character A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. in the next villains update. And it took me a while to become self-aware that, hey, this negative feedback loop of asking for what is, at the end of the day, lackluster content on average is not good. Stop doing it. Convince other people to stop. So I forgot to mention this when I was recording the video itself, but if you see people try to pass off fake images as real villain leaks for Blackmoor 2, or see people like Annis use Blackmoor insurrection footage, the mod General Mare is working on. If you see people like that post videos of that mod with a purposefully clickbaity title to make it look like it was an actual official update, detest it in the comment section and try to spread awareness that it's, bullshit and all that, We really don't need this feedback loop to continue any further. It's a bad thing. I think we as a community need to taper our expectations. We need to understand, hey, if there is a villains update for Maximus 2, how about just 2 or 3 playable characters that are on average way more interesting than their Blackmoor 2 contemporaries? I think that's far healthier. I think being entitled and expecting like a dozen playable villains in one update for the sake of having a dozen characters is bad. I think looking at the playable villains in Blackmoor 2 and saying, look at how many characters there are, holy fucking bullshit, I think doing that is stupid. Don't do that. It's not a good thing that there are that many characters. It would be a good thing if they were all interesting, but they're not. They're not created equal. Characters like Bufflecrux are far more interesting than the rest of the characters in the villains roster. They're not created equal. It is bad to say, look at how many characters there are, like that is a selling point. It is only a selling point if they're all great, and they're not all great. Most of them are at best. Alright, before I end this video, 2 more segments. This one has pretty much nothing to do with the previous video. I just want to talk about Pyro Gaming for a second, because I think he's a fucking loon. So you may have noticed earlier that I blacked out all of the names of the people on screen there, except for him, because I think he's genuinely kind of harmful to the community. Don't listen to a goddamn thing he says. He literally commented this, or something approximating that, 5 times on the same video, the same day, just cuz. And one more thing, and this has even less to do with the previous video than the Pyro Gaming thing. I just want to mention that out because it's relevant to the Pyro Gaming thing, kind of. So people on the Discord have just kind of been going through the comments on General Mero's more recent videos to see if he's bad-mouthing the devs in any way, and I think that's hilarious and also kind of sad. But it did resort to this screenshot. Genuinely, what the fuck? Genuinely, what the fuck? The dude commented that Rat King was playable, but the only guy who knew how to unlock him died in a plane crash or of fucking cancer, and he commented this on a Smash Brothers video, just cuz. I don't think you guys should come through the comments on DGM's videos just to see if he's bad-mouthing the 4 Fats or anything. That's kind of pathetic. But it did result in this, and this is funny, so... Anyway, moving on to... By the way, again, listen to nothing Pyro Gaming says. He has changed his name. It used to be Heavy Gaming. Now it's Pyro Gaming. If he changes his name again, I'll probably say something in the pinned comment, but... Regarding DGM and CK, they were collaborators on the previous video. I did not ask for them to collaborate on this video. If they see this video, and they decide to make a response to what they originally said in the previous video, I will link to their videos in the pinned comment and in the description. Woo. So we're doing one little amendment bit here at the end to talk about the impact the video had, because I completely forgot to mention this in the actual, main recording that I did on Thursday. It is now Monday the 15th. I recorded the first portion of the video on Thursday the 11th, I think. Now, if my voice sounds any different from the previous section, I am sick now, so that's awesome. But anyway, the impact the video had. I don't want to say it's the common opinion, but I've seen way more people say that they're tired of getting playable villains and that they don't want any more since that video released. Is all of that because of my video? Of course not. It would be egotistical to think that. It would be egotistical to think that because of me, the mecha is melting. It'd be egotistical to think that that guy, me, caused a bunch of people to think that playable villains are actually not a good thing to keep being added. Now, of course, some of those people were probably influenced by my video, and I'm not going to pretend that it didn't have any impact whatsoever, but it seems that more and more people, since that videos came out over the, almost year, I don't know how, I actually have no idea when the video came out. I'm going to check real quick. I overshot it a bit, about 9 months ago. But yeah, over the course of those months, more and more people have steadily said that they don't think playable villains should continue being added. Not agreeing with the video specifically, but essentially the same consensus. Not citing the video specifically, is what I meant to say. But yeah, kind of agreeing with the same consensus, that playable villains are kind of sort of getting stale, and are hurting the expectations of the community. There's more and more outcry against the people spamming in the comment sections about playable villains. Every time a new video comes out, those people are, you know, kind of sort of roasted more and more every single time. It seems that the video, for the most part, kind of sort of did its job, which is good, I guess. I didn't expect it to do that. I didn't expect it to, you know, convince people that playable villains were not a thing that needed to be continued, but apparently it did. Apparently it did. I still don't think it's the, you know, majority consensus on playable villains, but enough people have been, you know, I'm not going to say convinced because that implies my video did it. Enough people have changed their opinion on playable villains for me to consider my video correct, I guess. Woo!